Crimes themselves are classified based on what type of offense we're dealing with. And you may have heard or are familiar with the crime classifications of felonies, misdemeanors, and we have violations. I like to put violations and infractions in there. I don't think they're in the book. Um, Felonies, the most serious, right? The most serious of crimes. They could come with a very long term of imprisonment. Felonies can be violent and they can be nonviolent. An example of a violent felony is murder, rape, robbery. Those are violent felonies, and they result, if somebody's convicted, they will result in a prison term. And in some states, if it's murder, could even be sentenced to death. And we have non-violent felonies that do carry prison sentences. They're fairly light, but a lot of times they might get a longer period of supervision. And those things that are considered nonviolent felonies might be a theft involving a larger sum of money or a vehicle, if you steal somebody's credit card or a gift card. You might see a gift card lying around and you take it. That's a felony offense. It's nonviolent, but it's a felony offense. Misdemeanors are the less serious of crimes. They're usually punishable by county jail time or a fine or some period of supervision. You might have heard the term probation, supervision. An example of a misdemeanor is petty theft, a simple assault. And a violation or an infraction, they don't result in somebody ending up with a criminal record like a misdemeanor and a felony and a felony would. That's why those two are considered a crime. A violation is considered an infraction, but it's still listed in our penal law code, so I like to mention them. And they could be violations of traffic infractions or a disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace. In New York State is a violation. In some states it's a misdemeanor, but in New York it's a violation. So those are our classifications. Felonies, serious, then misdemeanors, and then violations and infractions. So what constitutes criminal liability? Well, every crime is broken down into elements. There are three common elements that exist in a crime, and it is the people, the prosecution, the government. It's their job to prove each and every one of these elements existed beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? Every crime will have at least these three. Some have more, but they will all have these three. There's a criminal act, there's criminal intent, and there's concurrence between the two. They have to happen you have to have them at the same time. Okay? So let's go through some examples. So, the act is called an actus reus. The intent is referred to as the mens rea. Let's talk about the criminal act, or the actus reus. It's an unlawful bodily movement. The statute will name the act in and of itself. And it could also be an omission to act or failure to act. It's illegal if you abduct another person, right? It's a crime if you take somebody else's property. There's an act. You're doing an act. You're driving a motor vehicle under the influence of alcohol. You break into your neighbor's house and you steal the cookie jar full of cash. Okay? You need a voluntary bodily movement. Can you have an involuntary movement? What if you're sleepwalking? You sleepwalk over to your neighbor's house and take the cookie jar and leave with it. It's full of cash and you were sleepwalking. You were hypnotized. Those things don't count. It has to be voluntary. What if you are driving down the road doing the speed limit, listening to the radio, and your tire blows out. Causes your car to swerve, you go into the other lane, you hit a car head on, and the driver of the other car dies. Is that a crime? No, because you didn't do a voluntary act. That's an accident. The tire blows out. That's an accident. What if you're talking on your cell phone and you run through a stop sign and you hit a vehicle, killing the other person? You didn't mean to kill the other person, but did you voluntarily act? You sure did. You're voluntarily on that cell phone, and what's against the law? Talking on your cell phone. If you're holding it. Texting. What about texting? That's what's happening there. That constitutes a voluntary act. I just want to go through an omission because it also can be an omission. Do you have a duty? Do you have a duty to help somebody? And if you don't help somebody, it's a crime. Like the Olympic swimmer, an Olympic swimmer doesn't go save a drowning child. You watch your friend get beat up. You don't help. You don't call for help. Those don't count. There is no good Samaritan. You're not obligated to help. But in some circumstances, whether designated by a statute or under a contract or some special relationship, there is a duty to act. And if you don't act, or omission of an act, you could be charged with a crime. Like a special relationship. Prime example, parent-child. A parent has a duty to help their child in danger. If they don't, they can be charged with a crime. A statute, failure to file taxes. You fail to file your taxes or you don't act, that's a crime. Under contract, an example under contract, a lifeguard has a duty to save somebody who is drowning. Okay? So that's how the omission works. Let's talk about the mental state, mens rea, criminal intent, we call it. There is an exception to the rule. I'll talk about it in a little bit, but the criminal intent is essential. Back to our sleepwalking, right? You haven't developed the intent to commit a crime or the level of culpability. For purposes of this class, mens rea is intent or deliberate purpose. I purposely behaved that way or acted that way or did that act. Or intent. I intended to do that act. For a murder, you might have heard the term malice aforethought. We don't use that term anymore. The definition of a homicide in New York, the basic definition, is intentionally killing another person. So you have to intend to do the killing, which is going to bring me to my next topic. Oh, actually, before I go to my next topic, I'm going to give you a couple more examples. To compare what I just said about murder, intent to kill another person, what do you have to do with that? You have to intend what? The death of somebody else. So you have to intend the result. Your goal is the result. So in order to be charged with murder, you have to intend and kill another person. You have to do the act and you have to intend it. But let's do driving while intoxicated. You're driving down the road. You just came from a party. You get in the car. You feel great and you're driving down the road and you swerve or you run a red light and you run into somebody and kill the other driver. Well, your intent wasn't to kill somebody. So can you be charged with murder? No. But is there some penalty? You just, I didn't mean to kill that person. Are you still in trouble? You're still going to be charged with a crime. What crime did you commit? What was the act? The voluntary act. Getting in the vehicle intoxicated. The voluntary act is getting in the vehicle and driving intoxicated. And just because you didn't have intent to kill anybody, there might be a crime that says if you do an act and somebody dies, we can charge you with manslaughter. That is the definition of the general. I generalized it, but that's the general gist. If you do an act and that particular act results in somebody's death, you don't have to intend it, you just have to intend the act, then you can be charged with manslaughter. So, in some instances, in some crimes, the intent goes towards both the act and both the result, the killing and the ultimate death. You intend the kill and you intend to have somebody die. There's two intents there, the result. And you can have a crime that's just very general, driving while intoxicated. All you have to do is get in the vehicle and drive intoxicated. There doesn't have to be something else. Somebody dies at the end of that. Buzz through a couple just to clear up this mens rea. A couple examples. Sally is sick. I don't like her. Here's my opportunity to get rid of her. She asks me for some aspirin. I give her 2 pills that I know are poison and I know will cause her death. Do we have a crime? Murder? Yeah, we have a crime. If I do that and I have the intent to do something that I know will achieve my result. Okay? That's a situation where we need two intents. The knowing and the intent. What if I just wanted to make her ill? So I gave her the poison, but then she died? I didn't mean to kill her. But I meant the act. I meant to make her ill. But something worse happened. That's we call that general intent. The other one we call specific intent, because you have to have 2 intents. What if she asked me for aspirin? I said, okay, and I just go in and I don't have any ill will or I don't want to kill her. I just go in and I grab 2 pills that were labeled in an aspirin bottle that I thought they were aspirin, but it wasn't aspirin. It ended up being cyanide and she died. Is that a crime? No. I have no intent whatsoever. It's an accident. Okay? All right, I think I hit that one home. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned at the beginning that the actus reus and the mens rea must be connected. They must happen at the same time. And if I'm talking about a crime that is like murder, that specific intent, I know those 2 pills are poison and I know they're going to cause her death. I have to be that cause. All right, my conduct is the legal term is the proximate cause of that criminal act that caused that harm. There has to be the connection. Okay? Each one of those connects. There can't be, let's say, this is going to be a crazy example. Let's say Chris and Mary, they're on the rooftop of a 30-story building and they're in an argument. Chris just breaks up with Mary and Mary's mad, so she intentionally shoves Chris, knowing that he's going to trip and fall off the side of the building down 30 stories, okay? But in the meantime, while Chris is falling, Rachel and Brian are having a fight of their own on the 22nd floor, and Rachel breaks up with Tom, and Tom is mad, and Tom grabs a gun. He's going to shoot Rachel, but misses, and it goes out the window, and it hits Chris as he's falling to the ground. Did you get all that? Who killed Chris? We got Mary, who shoved him intentionally off the top of the building. But then we have Tom's bullet that actually did it. Would Mary be on the hook? No, because Mary was not the cause of the death. The bullet was. So, that is just an overview. Those are the elements that have to be in a crime. You need an act, You need the intent, and they need to be together, concurrence. And just one exception that I'm throwing a wrench into things, strict liability. No mens rea required. An offender can be held responsible for a violation that's independent of any intent to commit the offense. My favorite example to use is speeding. It is a traffic offense, and the law does not say you intentionally have to be going over the speed limit. It just says if you're going over a speed limit, if you're going 65, if you're going 65 in a 30 mile an hour zone, you're guilty of speeding. There isn't you intend to do it. So the whole argument of, oh, I didn't know I was speeding or my speedometer was broken doesn't matter. The people can prove you were speeding, usually by radar. It's a strict liability crime. It doesn't matter what your intent was or the person's intent was. You see strict liability in statutory rape. You don't need the intent of the defendant or the offender. All you need is that the offender had intercourse with the minor, whatever the age is in the statute in New York, 17, less than 17, 17 or less. It doesn't matter. Oh, I didn't know. Oh, the victim lied to me, told me they were 21. Nope, strict liability. Okay?